and welcome to the Retro Odyssey podcast. I'm Steven, and with me as always is Matt. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. How are you?
I've been okay. It's been, busy with the holiday season, but, we're past all that now.
Yeah, more or less. Still got New Year's to go, but yeah, at least Christmas is out of the way. It's kind of depressing working in retail, like you look forward to when Christmas is done rather than looking forward to Christmas itself.
I've done Christmas retail, and it's actually kind of a similar thing working at Amazon during peak, which basically ends on Christmas Day. Well, depending on the facility, but I know the feeling.
But did you get any interesting stuff for Christmas?
My wife's family, one of them usually gives us some coins and money from different places. One person usually gives me like some long sleeve thermal shirts because she got me that one year and I loved it, so she just gets me the same thing every year.
Fair enough.
But I think the most interesting and relevant thing to the podcast is my wife got me the Power Rangers Super Samurai game for Xbox 360, which requires the Kinect. So I had to buy a Kinect, and I picked that up a couple of weeks ago because she let me know I was going to need it.
I'm sure Kinects are probably really, really cheap now, aren't they?
The one I got for 360, I got for like $25.
That's not bad.
I mean, I'm sure the Xbox One Kinect is a little more expensive.
So do you have to do your own punches and attacks and stuff like that?
I haven't actually played the Power Rangers game yet. What I have played with the Kinect is I picked up Fable: The Journey, and that's actually a pretty good game. It's better than I expected it to be.
Is that related to the Peter Molyneux Fable series?
Yes.
Okay. I have played and enjoyed the first two games of those.
I've played the three main ones. I have only finished the third one. But I mean, I generally enjoy them.
And what does this Kinect version involve?
So it's basically a lot of the beginning of the game is controlling the reins for your horse because you've got a horse with a cart hitched to it. So it's a lot of move one hand forward and the other hand back to turn a certain direction, and then the reverse for the other way. Stuff like that, just controlling the horse. And then once you get a little bit further in, you get some magic abilities, and it's things like, throwing a lightning bolt or, grabbing and pulling something, and you just do different movements with your hands for the different abilities. And it works pretty well. I think it was a little bit later on in Kinect's lifespan. I don't think it was one of the early Kinect games. So I think they had some time to figure out how to make it work a little bit better.
Yeah. I've never owned a Kinect system. I have the PlayStation one, the PlayStation Move. I've got one of those units boxed. I've never even taken it out of the box.
Right.
I just found it in a shop really cheap one day and picked it up. But I've never actually used it. I've got no real intention of using it, to be honest.
Right. Now that I had a reason to get it, I'm going to look through and see what all is available. Try to get what I can out of it. But I don't think there's going to be a ton of stuff to play. Just because, when it didn't take off the way they had hoped, they kind of just didn't. They didn't make a whole lot more games for it.
Yeah. I didn't get any gaming stuff for Christmas, but I did finally get my Evercade Versus, which I pre-ordered about 6 months ago or so. And yeah, so I hooked that up yesterday. I did a quick unboxing on my YouTube channel as well. It's a real nice little system. I've only got the one cartridge for it so far, which has got 8 games on it. But I really like the controller. The controller is really comfortable. The unit looks quite nice. It's quite small, which is good because I don't have a huge amount of space. It's a really nice little cartridge-based system. I played through a beat-em-up called... I don't remember what it was called. But I played through a beat-em-up Comba something. It's something that really doesn't roll off the tongue very well. Really quite nice looking game. It did remind me how absolutely bullshit arcade mechanics could be, like back in the 90s. You die and take damage really, really easily. And you only get 1 credit per life, or 1 life per credit, I should say. And you can also use credits to refill your health at any time. So if you were playing this in the arcade, if you wanted to finish it, then you're going to be paying a hell of a lot of money.
Right.
But obviously, with this system, you can put in as many credits as you want, so that wasn't really an issue. It doesn't just do arcade games. There are a lot of like console games on there as well, all officially licensed from like different companies and stuff like that. There's like Intellivision ones, there's Codemasters ones, stuff like that. So I'm hoping to pick up a few more. But I've been having fun with the few games I've got so far. I've got like Double Dragon 2 and 3 on there as well. A 3D Tetris kind of game called Blockout, which I also have on Mega Drive. But this is like the arcade version of it. And yeah, it's a real nice little system.
Nice.
Aside from that, I've just been playing Final Fantasy 14 still. I've now finished Endwalker. It is better than Shadowbringers. I didn't think it could be, but yep, definitely is. And I'm now at the point where I'm gearing up and leveling up a few other jobs. I've got all my crafters and gatherers leveled up apart from one crafter, and I'm on the way to doing like my 3rd combat job at the minute.
Yeah, I've also been playing a whole lot of Final Fantasy 14, but I just started Shadowbringers.
Yeah.
Based on my level, it seems like I would be halfway through, but I'm pretty sure I'm not.
What level are you?
I'm like 76, 77, but I just finished with the ones in the forest, or the Knights Blessed. Yeah, so I just finished up with them. But I did hear somewhere that people noticed the experience seemed to have increased, at least before the current content.
I think a lot of experience has been buffed, like across the whole game for a lot of stuff. You've only got one more zone left, but there is still like quite a lot of content, and obviously all of the patch content is something that there's like max level content anyway.
Right.
So you do still have a long way to go, but 77 in Raktika Forest sounds about right to me.
Okay.
And are you enjoying it so far?
Oh yeah, I love it. This has been really good. Especially, like, I absolutely love the trust system.
Yeah.
Because it just gets me one step closer to making this a single-player game. I know that takes some of the fun out of it, but, like...
The first time through running dungeons, I do it with Trust, which is an AI team that you can put together of your companions. And, yeah, it's a good way to learn the mechanics of the dungeon, because you can just watch your teammates, watch what they're doing, because it's AI, they're already programmed to know what to do.
Right. The only downside being that they don't do AoE attacks. They only focus on one target. But I mean, when it comes to the bosses, when it really matters, that's usually all you need.
Yeah. I mean, they can handle trash perfectly fine. They're not going to die on trash.
Yeah.
Without going into spoilers, there is actually an 8-man instance that uses Trust in Endwalker, which is a lot of fun. Like all the scions, you get them all. Nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to getting through. Definitely enjoying what I've seen so far, Shadowbringers. I haven't played much else. I've gone back to Final Fantasy X just because I've got a whole line of Final Fantasies I want to play through. But there's not much to talk about there. It's Final Fantasy X. I'm sure we'll talk about it on one of these episodes. Yeah, that's about it. So we can move on to the news.
Okay, well, I only actually have one news story this month. Like with last month, nothing's really going on.
Right.
But this is all speculation. Well, I say speculation. It's more of a leak, insider info. But PlayStation are looking to be more of a competition to Microsoft's Game Pass, and reportedly, they are putting together a service which they're going to be calling Spartacus, which I'm sure that name will probably change. That's probably just a code name for it.
Yeah.
But they're putting PS Plus and PS Now together into one service, and there's going to be kind of like 3 tiers of subscriptions, basically, and they're going to be adding a hell of a lot of PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games to it. These are all going to be playable on PS5 as well as PS4. So they're trying to do what Microsoft is doing, bringing like a lot of their library back onto the newest consoles and being able to play them. Like the highest tier of subscription that they've got, basically you have access to like the entire library that they have. And with them rolling PS Plus into it as well, I'm assuming some of those titles you're going to get to keep and stuff like that. But we don't really know much more yet. Apparently, it's meant to be launching in the spring.
I'm probably biased, but I feel like it's too little, too late. I think Game Pass is too far ahead at this point. Because I mean, at this point, Game Pass is moving on to cloud gaming and getting stuff on your phone, and a lot of games actually work well on the phone as long as you've got a good enough connection. So, I mean, they're chugging right along with that, and I feel like whatever Sony puts out, it'll be close, but it's not going to be on the same level as Game Pass currently.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I've never actually used Game Pass, but obviously I know what it entails, and
Right.
Everyone who does have it seems to love it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually use it pretty frequently. There's even times where we've ended up using it accidentally to play a game that I already have the disc for, but because it's on Game Pass, it installs it and will run it from Game Pass and not from the disc.
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. You know, I'll probably subscribe, but the other edge that Xbox is going to have over PlayStation in that regard is letting me use my disc, because in any of the games that they've made backwards compatible and put on Game Pass, I can also use the physical disc if I have it.
Mm.
And then there's some that aren't on Game Pass that I can use the physical discs for. So that's still something that Sony's going to have to do if they want me to believe that they're the better console.
Yeah, I can't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't see it happening either. I think, honestly, what I think happened is when Microsoft fumbled the launch of the Xbox One so hard, they ended up backed into a corner, and they came out swinging and are just devastating Sony at this point.
Hmm.
I mean, the fact that the Xbox Series X and Series S can play any game currently playable on an Xbox One, whether that be Xbox 360 or Xbox One games, that is huge. And honestly, I'm pretty sure most, if not all, of the games that have been releasing have come out on both Xbox One and Xbox Series.
Yeah.
Which is great for people like me that can't get the new consoles. Which I don't know if that feature was planned or if it's a byproduct of the chip shortage. I feel like it might have been planned initially, and then they've kept it going longer than intended because of the difficulty getting consoles.
Well, yeah, because they did originally say when they were talking about the new Xbox that it wasn't meant to be a replacement, more of kind of like just a new product line,
Right.
sort of. It was weird the way they explained it, but it was something along those lines.
I don't know. I mean, I'm still gonna get one because I've got an Xbox One S, so I've got the mid-range Xbox One. I would like to have, the latest and greatest since I never got my hands on an Xbox One X. Plus, I really like the design of the Series X, the little mini fridge.
Yeah, I really don't.
See,
I don't like the look of it at all.
I love it because it'll take up less space. Because, like, outside of the base model Xbox One, you can't really put the Xboxes on their side just because of the way they're designed. I mean, I don't like putting consoles on their side to begin with because I've had them fall over and that causes all kind of problems. But the Xbox Series X design and even the Series S with it being perfectly rectangular, it's really easy to squeeze those into tighter spaces than the other Xbox versions.
Yeah.
And that's all whenever one can be had. Like, on top of there not being stock, it's kind of hard to set aside $500 at any one time.
Yeah, yeah, tell me about it. I mean, even when Sony contacted me and said, "Hey, you can order a PS5 if you want," I ordered one for a friend, but as much as I would like one, £450 is not what I'm willing to pay for one.
Yeah. And I mean, when I get the PS5, I plan on getting the disc version because I like having physical copies of games. So I have to pay an extra, I think it's an extra $100 for the disc one, and it doesn't look as good.
Mm. It almost looks like the disc drive was a late addition to it because the discless version is like so sleek,
Yeah.
and the disc drive version is just got this big chunk sticking out the side.
Yeah, that's clearly the discless version is clearly the version they were thinking about first. It's what they were planning around. I feel like it shouldn't have been that hard to work a disk drive in without ruining the form factor, but I don't make consoles for a living, so
But yeah, I can't imagine me buying a discless console. I mean, you've got to think about the future. It's like there will be a time when these stores shut down.
yeah,
When the servers shut down, you will not be able to download the games.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
as much as they might say, "Oh, these are going to be around for ages," if you think, say, like I've got a ZX Spectrum that's like nearly 40 years old,
Mm-hmm.
I can turn that on and play games.
Yep.
If you get a discless version of the PS5 now, in 40 years' time, will you be able to play the games that you've bought?
Hell,
Unless they're already downloaded to the console.
in 14 years' time, will it still be there?
Mm.
I mean, look at the Wii U. They shut down the eShop in a few different countries, and I'm sure it's getting shut down eventually for us. Sony's tried to shut down the Vita and PS3 stores a couple of times.
And I mean, they've only been given like a temporary reprieve,
Yeah,
just because people were in an uproar when they announced it earlier this year.
yeah. I'm 100% with you on that. The only discless console I've even considered is the Xbox Series S, in addition to the Series X, purely to turn it into an emulation machine.
Yeah,
Because having an emulation machine that can run that wide variety of things on a TV, I'm all for that. But I can do a lot of that on the Wii U now. Like I can basically, anything that's ever been released on a Nintendo console, I can put most of it on the Wii U. But, it is what it is. We'll see what Sony's offering ends up being.
yeah. If they've got Silent Hill 2 on there, then I will probably stump up for the subscription. Despite the fact that if I wanted to play Silent Hill 2 in HD, I could literally just take my Xbox copy and put it in the Xbox One. But still,
Right. Although I guess it would depend on which version of Silent Hill 2.
would probably be the director's cut. I would have thought.
I don't
I
know. They
mean,
might.
oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, they might break out the HD version.
The leak didn't mention PS3 games, so
Oh, that's true.
maybe not. Don't know. If they put in PS1 and PS2 games, they'd probably put PS3 on there as well, I would have thought.
Maybe it's just not planned for launch.
Mm.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So that's our one and only news topic. So I think we can go ahead and get on with the actual topic.
Okay, let's do that.
We'll take a quick break. This month, our topic is Christmas games, as we've done in the past, although we're starting to stretch the limits of what we can actually cover under that umbrella, as evidenced by the fact that we're talking about Gremlins, Stripe versus Gizmo. Was this just a Game Boy Advance game?
Yes.
So this came out on the Game Boy Advance. I'll just say up front, it's not very good. It felt okay for about 5 minutes.
I hated it after 5 seconds. Basically, the story is Stripe and his army of gremlins have stolen Christmas presents for some reason, and Gizmo has got to go and collect them all and get them all back. Interesting thing about this game is that you can play as either Gizmo or Stripe, but it is literally just like a sprite swap, because if you play as Gizmo, you're going around collecting presents from the level. If you're going around as Stripe, you're just stealing presents from the level. I mean, the levels are exactly the same and the presents are in the exact same place. Yeah. So it is pretty much the same game, just with a sprite swap. But it is very... what's the way to describe it? The movement is fluid, but to the point where you are kind of like crashing into a lot of stuff. It's slippy. It's difficult a lot of the time to make accurate jumps because you're kind of like struggling with accuracy due to the speed and the slippiness, kind of like working in conjunction, and that's compounded by the fact that the game really, really wants Stripe or Gizmo to be in the exact center of the screen. If you kind of like start running and you move like a little bit away from the center of the screen will immediately kind of like snap back, and it does it so fast and jarring. It is, you'll be running along and the screen will just be kind of like jerking back constantly. It makes it really, really difficult to actually play.
I was only able to get maybe like 10 minutes in before I got to a point where I couldn't find where to go next. Yeah, I mean, basically the whole time you're just slipping around, and I mean they're a lot more generous with the light than I thought they would be, because basically when you play as Gizmo, you have to basically dive bomb the gremlins and then use a flashlight to melt them. And I thought you were going to have to be a lot more on top of them with that light, but they're decently generous on that. For someone that doesn't like platformers, this wasn't going to change my mind in the slightest.
No, it's not a good example of the genre at all. And with you having to kind of like essentially hit the enemies twice, because you've got to like roll into them and then, as you said, flash your light on them. It feels awkward to defeat the enemies. Mm-hmm. If you could just kind of like jump on their heads like you can in like every other platform game, it would be fine. But the fact that you have to jump on them and then follow it up with something, whilst you also slip it, I mean, you will invariably run into the enemies before you've even seen them. Yeah. Just because of how the camera and how like the slippiness of the movement kind of like work together to screw you over. I have to say the levels aren't especially well designed either. I mean, there's a lot of jumps which feel awkward, and there are a lot of places where you feel like you should be able to get onto a platform and you can't. And
Hmm.
there are also a lot of things that you're not sure whether or not you can jump on.
Yeah.
Like I actually got stuck in the first level because there's a section at the bottom with there's like a load of fire around and stuff, and I thought I'd kind of like soft lock the game because I couldn't find where to go at all.
Yeah, because it doesn't look like you can reach the thing above you that you're supposed to get on top of.
Yeah, yeah, and stuff that you can jump on, it doesn't look like you can jump on it. Basically, in that area with the fire, there were a load of cages,
Yeah.
like bird cage looking things dotted around that just look like part of the background. But it
Yeah,
turns
it
out you
does.
can jump on them.
Yeah, it was a lot of that.
And the sound effects are horrible as well. Gizmo makes this high pitched, I don't want to call it a squeal, but it's a high
Just
pitched
about.
thing every single time he picks something up. And he makes a different sound every single time he gets hit. And both sounds are annoying as hell. And you will hear them a lot. The music is really bad as well. And it just loops and loops and loops.
Yeah.
One thing that I will praise it for, though, it is a good looking game. The sprites are really nice. The animations on those sprites are really nice. It's very colourful. It's just kind of a shame that that a nice looking game ended up being this terrible.
It looks fine. It just doesn't play as good as it looks.
I do like the concept that you can play as either Gizmo or Stripe, but I feel like they could have given you different levels, like different objectives
Right.
to do that. And plus, if you're playing as Stripe, there's an absolute shitload of Mogwai around.
Mhm.
Like in the film, there's only one. Well, no, there isn't actually. There's a shitload in the film as well, but because they all turn into gremlins pretty much. But
Mhm.
there's absolutely tons of these things running around in these levels. But it's kind of like if they can be turned into gremlins so easily. But I mean, Stripe just literally slaps them and they turn into gremlins. How did they survive as a species?
Right.
Like, what? Why aren't there kind of like a million gremlins running around and no Mogwai? Like, why are any Mogwai left?
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But that's more criticism of the film than anything else. The film is good. It's a good Christmas film, Gremlins.
Yeah. I think I've only seen it once.
It's enjoyable, more violent than you would be expecting it to be.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know that we have a whole lot more to say. It's, it's not great, don't bother tracking one down.
Yeah, it does appear to only be available on the Game Boy Advance. Don't pay money for this.
Hmm.
Like seriously, you will be really disappointed. I will give it credit for one other thing though. Actually, when you first start the game, it does give you a visual guide to what your moves do.
Yeah, it gives you that nice visual tutorial, which is nice. I kind of wish the other game we're going to talk about had that.
Mm. This bit has been rather short, but there's not a lot to say about a game that we both hated and didn't put a hell of a lot of time into, to be honest.
Yeah.
Although if your fetish is collecting presents, then the next game will satisfy that, I'm sure.
Yeah. So let's take a short break and talk about it. So our second game, it's James Pond 2 Operation Robocop. It's actually on a bunch of systems. This one feels a lot more like your standard platformers. It does have one really interesting mechanic where the titular character can stretch, and if you hit the underside of certain things, you can actually grab on and then pull yourself up to it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way of like moving around the level.
This one was a lot better. Still, it's obviously a platformer, so there's still some places where you have to make tricky jumps, and if you miss, you got a long way to go back around. But from what I played, it was it's actually pretty enjoyable. I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot of logic to whatever the story is supposed to be, but I mean, you're basically just running around collecting toys. It works fine.
It's essentially the same story as the Gremlins game, just someone's stolen presents and you're having to go around and collect them all.
Yeah.
And someone has kidnapped a bunch of elves. Basically, you complete each level by going around and freeing these elves that have been kidnapped. And once you've got like a certain amount, you then move to the exit and you can get out the level. So it's essentially the Alien 3 video game, but less bleak. Because the Alien 3 video game had you going around collecting or freeing captives. And once you had freed them all, you could exit the level.
Sounds like Alien Syndrome back on the NES and a bunch of other systems.
Mm. Yeah, I guess a lot of games use that mechanic. But like you said, this game is available on pretty much everything from the Amiga all the way up to the PS2. And I actually played a few different versions of this because I wanted to see how they compare to each other. From what I found, all of the versions on Nintendo systems seem to run a fair bit faster, which isn't a good thing. I feel that you move a little bit too fast for the actual level, and there are a lot of times where you're going to be kind of like bumping into enemies, and it kind of like gives you a little bit less control. The Mega Drive version is slowed down a little bit, and I find the Mega Drive version more enjoyable personally because it is slightly slower, and you do have like that more control. You still have issues where I feel like some of the platforms, the collision detection isn't quite accurate on some of them. You have some oddly shaped platforms in some of the levels, and a lot of times when you feel like you should have landed on something, you will go straight through.
Yeah.
Which can be an issue. But I do find the Mega Drive version a lot easier to play. I believe the Amiga version also runs at that kind of speed, but the Amiga version, the sound and music isn't as good as the Mega Drive version, I don't think.
Mm.
This did also come out on the Switch like not long ago, but it like all Nintendo versions, it is kind of like a rather almost feels sped up in a way.
Interesting.
I kind of like have a bit of a history with James Pond because when I was growing up, I had a Game Boy and we had Super James Pond on that, which is a port of the Super Nintendo version, I believe. And I played a hell of a lot of that. Me and my sister both love that game, and it's a similar kind of thing, similar mechanics. So you're going around collecting presents, you can extend your body and stuff like that. They're so similar, in fact, that I actually thought that it was RoboCod that I had on the Game Boy. I was trying to search for ages for a copy of RoboCod for Game Boy, and I couldn't find it because it doesn't actually exist. It's Super James Pond that's on the Game Boy, and going back and playing that, it does feel a lot more primitive. You know, rose tinted glasses and all that. It felt like a lot better back then, but not so much now. I do find the RoboCod sequel to be like the better game.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first I've ever dealt with any of them, but I mean, I thought it was all right.
Another interesting thing as well is some of the versions of this do actually have the RoboCop theme music in it.
Interesting.
I believe the Amiga version does. I don't remember it being in the Mega Drive version. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, you do actually get the RoboCop theme music in a couple of these.
That is interesting.
Overall, I do kind of like find the music a little bit samey. It's joyful enough, it's decent enough, but it's not a particularly long loop, and levels are often quite long, so you are listening to this short loop of music like constantly.
Yeah.
Which can get a little bit grating, but it's enjoyable enough to listen to. It's not as bad as the music in the Gremlins game.
Yeah, I would agree. Good enough, not great.
But after this game, it kind of feels like they just forgot about James Pond. Like it was a joke that worked twice, and I guess they felt that they couldn't get away with doing it a third time.
I guess.
Although obviously it has just been re-released on Switch, but there weren't any more games after RoboCod.
All right, like I said, I hadn't ever even heard of the series before we talked about it, so
It's inoffensive enough. It's not something I would pick up on Switch purely because it does have like that fast speed, which makes it a little bit harder to play for me.
yeah, I think I played the Genesis version, and I would not want to see that sped up.
Mm. It's even worse on the GBA version because you're on the GBA with the smaller screen. Obviously, you're a little bit more zoomed in, and you still have that speed whilst being zoomed in. You run into enemies a hell of a lot,
and I was already running into enemies a lot.
But I am impressed that other than those small differences, the game is very much consistent over all of these different versions.
Yeah, that is kind of impressive.
There's not a lot of changes. They all generally look the same. They all generally sound the same, and the level designs are pretty much the same as well.
And given the time period, that's kind of impressive. If for someone that likes platformers, this might be worth checking out. I mean, I personally probably won't go out and look for it, but it's interesting enough that someone who wants a new platformer experience might get something out of it.
It's inoffensive, mindless fun, really.
Yeah.
It would be a good game to give to a kid. If you put this game in front of a kid, they're probably going to have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, I mean it's fine enough. Technically about Christmas. Well, actually, it's explicitly about Christmas, but it fulfills the criteria. I don't think we have too much more to say. I think we're just gonna end up going in circles if we keep going.
Yeah, that's the thing with a lot of platform games, especially ones like this, which don't really do anything new throughout the stages. There's just not a lot really to really say.
Right. So I guess we'll go ahead and wrap there and take a short break and come back to finish up.
Okay.
So that was our Christmas special. We hope everyone had a good holiday season, and hopefully next year turns out a little bit better for everybody. But we will be back next year, hopefully next month, with new episodes. So all that's really left is to say goodbye. So goodbye.
Goodbye.